These words echoed through the halls of the Louisville court in Kentucky, March 1963, when one of the most shocking cases of consanguinity in American history emerged from the depths of the Appalachian Mountains, a place where isolation had fostered closed communities for generations. For more than 40 years, the Harrington family had lived in complete secrecy. What occurred on their rural 200-acre property would forever alter our understanding of the extremes of human degradation. In 1943, Thomas Harrington, just 16, was compelled by his own father, Jeremiah Harrington, to take on the role of husband to his mother, Martha, after Jeremiah's untimely death in a mining accident. What began as a twisted tradition of preserving pure lineage soon transformed into an unimaginable family nightmare. The Harrington homestead lay 15 kilometers from Pineville, hidden among ancient oak-covered hills, perpetually shrouded in a mist that seemed to guard its darkest secrets. There, cut off from society, 3 generations lived under the rules set by their ancestor, Ezekiel Harrington, who had arrived in 1897 obsessed with maintaining what he called blood purity. By 1943, Martha was 34 and a widow of 5 children, trapped by poverty and by the suffocating family doctrines enforced by her late father-in-law. Thomas, her eldest, was chosen to become the family's protector, a cruel euphemism for what he would endure over the next 2 decades. Neighbors described young Thomas as a shy boy, blue-eyed, with brown hair. Yet social pressure, geographic isolation, and financial dependence left him powerless. Resistance was impossible. He was forced into a union that broke every known moral and social law. For years, the family maintained an illusion of normalcy. Thomas worked the small farm, growing corn, tending livestock, while Martha cared for the younger children. To the few neighbors who occasionally visited, they were merely a grieving mother and her son trying to survive hardship. But behind closed doors, a far darker truth unfolded. In 1945, Martha bore her first child by Thomas, a girl named Sarah, born with severe facial deformities and cognitive impairment. Her features, narrowly spaced eyes, a cleft palate, and underdeveloped intellect, revealed the early marks of inbreeding. 2 years later, David was born. He suffered from chronic respiratory issues and seizures. The genetic damage was worsening with each generation, yet the family remained isolated, without medical care or outside help. Subscribe if you haven't already to discover other disturbing stories that remained hidden for decades, tales society chose to forget but that must be told to understand the limits of human degradation. By 1950, 7 years into this coerced union, the consequences of consanguinity could no longer be denied. Martha, now 41, had given birth to 4 children by Thomas, each one more afflicted than the last. Their third child, Michael, born in 1949, could never walk properly due to severe malformations in his legs. His limbs were misshapen and his toes fused, a condition called syndactyly, common in close inbreeding. In 1952 came Rebecca, born with extreme microcephaly, her head drastically undersized, her brain underdeveloped. She never learned to speak or eat on her own, remaining in a vegetative state until her death at age 8. By then, Thomas, now 23, was deteriorating mentally. The crushing weight of his reality, combined with poverty and shame, drove him into psychological decline. He alternated between long silences and violent outbursts directed at his own children. The Harrington farm descended into near-total isolation. The children rarely left the property, and when they did, they were covered head to toe to hide their deformities. Martha enforced strict control, forbidding contact with outsiders and keeping the children occupied with chores to prevent wandering. In 1953, Reverend William Patterson, the pastor of the local church, made an unannounced visit. What he saw disturbed him deeply: children with visible deformities, a house heavy with tension and fear. Martha brushed it off as God's will, yet Patterson noticed something else: the striking resemblance between Thomas and the younger children, beyond what could be explained by half-sibling relation. He also observed identical blue eyes and shared birthmarks, coincidences that defied probability. During his visit, Rebecca suffered one of her seizures. When Patterson offered medical help, Martha refused sharply, claiming doctors wouldn't understand their special condition. The pastor left troubled. He tried to return in the following months, but each time, the family refused to see him. Rumors began spreading through the rural community, whispers of a cursed family punished by divine wrath. In 1954, the fifth child, James, was born, bearing the most severe deformities yet. Each hand had only 3 fingers, his eyes were mismatched in color, heterochromia, and a heart defect limited his movement. He rarely cried, living in quiet detachment that even Martha found unsettling. By 1958, a drought struck Kentucky. For the first time in 15 years, the Harringtons were forced to seek government aid. Martha visited the Pineville Social Services office, where Dorothy Mills, a 45-year-old social worker with a degree from the University of Louisville, immediately noticed the children's alarming appearance. Their deformities matched genetic patterns Dorothy had studied in inbreeding cases. She noted that Sarah, now 13, not only had facial abnormalities but also the speech of a much younger child. David, 11, struggled to breathe, Michael, 9, could barely walk, and James, 4, remained silent and unresponsive. While reviewing documents, Dorothy found inconsistencies. The younger children's birth certificates listed Thomas as father, yet no marriage record existed. When questioned, Martha's answers were evasive and contradictory. Suspicious, Dorothy began making unannounced home visits. During one such visit in September 1958, she found Thomas and Martha sharing the same bedroom while all 5 children slept together in another poorly ventilated room. The arrangement unmistakably hinted at a spousal relationship. When confronted, Martha became defensive and threatened to move away if harassed. But Dorothy had seen enough to suspect incest and child neglect. Her fears were confirmed when she gently spoke with young James. The boy innocently repeated words he had overheard, "Dad, Thomas is Mom Martha's brother." That single sentence, from a child too young to understand its meaning, shattered any remaining doubt. Realizing the magnitude of what she had uncovered, Dorothy reported the case to Sheriff Robert Kane, a 52-year-old lawman with 2 decades of service. At first, he struggled to believe such a thing could happen. While whispers of inbreeding were not unheard of in isolated areas, few were ever proven. Yet Dorothy's evidence, the deformities, the living arrangements, and the boy's statement, left no room for denial. In October 1958, Sheriff Kane obtained a search warrant. Alongside Dorothy and Dr. Henry Morrison, a county physician trained in genetics at the University of Kentucky, they arrived at the Harrington property on a fog-laden morning, a fitting mirror to the darkness within. Dr. Morrison's examinations revealed textbook examples of inbreeding depression, congenital deformities consistent across all the children. Sarah, 13, had severe facial malformations and scoliosis impairing her breathing. Her mental age was estimated at 6. David, 11, suffered from a heart defect and underdeveloped lungs. Cyanosis left his skin tinted blue. Morrison predicted he wouldn't survive past 15 without intervention. Michael, 9, endured painful bone deformities and needed surgeries unavailable in rural Kentucky. James, 4, had hydrocephalus, fluid buildup in the brain, explaining his stunted mental development and apathy. Confronted with overwhelming evidence, Martha finally confessed. She admitted that, after her husband's death in 1943, she was forced by tradition and circumstance into a union with her eldest son. Thomas, now 31, displayed signs of severe mental instability, alternating between remorse and confusion, unable to fully grasp the horror of his life. Further investigation uncovered multiple miscarriages, likely caused by genetic defects. Dr. Morrison estimated Martha had been pregnant at least 10 times, with half ending in stillbirths. As news spread, local papers dubbed them Kentucky's most isolated family. Public reaction was divided, pity for their suffering, disgust at their actions. In December 1958, the Bell County Court removed the children from the home. Sarah, David, Michael, and James were placed in institutions for severely disabled children. Rebecca had died 2 years earlier. In January 1959, Thomas Harrington received a 15-year prison sentence for crimes against morals, the legal term for incest at the time. Martha was sentenced to 10 years but served only 4 in a psychiatric facility, recognized partly as a victim of her circumstances. The Harrington case became one of the most thoroughly documented in 20th-century American medical literature. Sarah died in 1967 at age 22 from respiratory complications. David, as Dr. Morrison predicted, passed in 1962 during heart surgery. His case later contributed to genetic studies on inbreeding. Michael lived until 25, cared for in an institution, passing in 1974 from kidney failure. James, the youngest, outlived expectations, dying in 1985 at age 31, mentally no older than a 3-year-old. After their arrest, the Harrington farm was abandoned. The wooden house crumbled, and nature reclaimed the land that had witnessed so much suffering. Today, only the stone foundations remain, swallowed by weeds and silence. The case profoundly influenced Kentucky's social welfare policies. Dorothy Mills, the social worker who uncovered it, became a national advocate for children's rights, pushing for stronger systems to detect neglect and incest in remote areas. Thomas, released in 1967, never reintegrated. He lived quietly in a Louisville boarding house, working odd jobs, drinking heavily. He died in 1983, age 56, from liver cirrhosis, the toll of a life burdened by shame. Martha, freed in 1963, relocated to Tennessee under a new identity, working as a housekeeper until her death in 1979. She never reconnected with her surviving children. The Harrington family left behind not only a tragic human story but also a scientific legacy. Their case helped shape early detection protocols for genetic malformations caused by endogamy and informed public health policies in rural America. To this day, the story stands as a grim reminder of how isolation, twisted traditions, and desperation can drag families into the darkest depths of human suffering. The Harringtons paid the ultimate price for a belief that valued blood purity above humanity itself. If you've stayed with this story until the end, comment "I watched here" so I know who truly connects with these untold histories. Subscribe for more real cases that society tried to forget, but that must be remembered to understand the farthest reaches of the human condition.